Electoral Act 2026 is once again taking the center stage on Jigsaw today as preparations for the 2027 general elections kick in gradually. Despite the presidential assent to the 2026 Electoral Act, it would appear that legislative works on the new law is still incomplete. Last week, the House of Representatives went back to effect some amendments to the new act in a legislative process that was started and completed in just one sitting. Last Wednesday, the House of Representatives amended the Electoral Act to prohibit individuals from holding membership in more than one political party at the same time. The amendment introduces stiff penalties aimed at curbing a practice which critics say has contributed to weakening Nigeria's democratic institutions. Under the new provision, any individual found guilty of belonging to multiple political parties simultaneously could face a fine of up to 10 million naira or a maximum prison sentence of 2 years or both. Such memberships would also be declared invalid. The proposal is designed to close legal loopholes that have for years allowed politicians to maintain parallel affiliations while navigating Nigeria's highly competitive political landscape. In the past, we have seen people contesting primaries in one political party, and when they fail, they move to another to contest. Now, if eventually signed into law, the amendment is expected to strengthen the legal framework regulating party membership, party primaries, and introduce criminal consequences for violations and safeguard the credibility of Nigeria's electoral process. Allegations of dual party membership have often surfaced during
A very warm welcome to you. We are starting the discussions now. Don't mind the sudden interruption there, where you already know what we're looking at this morning. I'm sorry. This afternoon, pardon me. My name is Benga Arileba, and of course, Electoral Act 2026, still an unfinished business. Those are the things, the details we'll be keyed into this afternoon. My guest is here, Dr. Hussein Abdul is a public intellectual with decades of experience in shaping policies, building institutions, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa as well. Country director of CARE?
Yes.
CARE Nigeria. And of course, he's already here physically. Dr. Abdul, good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Mwega. Thanks for having me.
The business of Electoral Act 2026.
Yes.
Can we say it's a finished business yet? If, as at last week, we already amended the new law.
Yeah, it's sort of finished business, and it's sort of finished business, not on elections at all, but this particular one is even more peculiar. We're used to the history of almost every elections. We go through the whole process of amending the Electoral Act, and in some cases, even amending provisions of the Constitution that could support the integrity of our elections. But this one is a bit quite peculiar. First was the fact that they went through an elaborate amendment, and the amendment did not meet the expectations of the people. Of course, as soon as the National Assembly was done with the process, it was sent to the presidency, and we got the quickest assent on an Electoral Act. In the history of Electoral Acts amendment in the country, we weren't sure whether it has even gone through a proper review at the executive level, but it was quickly signed. And again, that also wasn't well taken, to the extent that citizens expect that it will go through review, and then the demands and the cries of civil society will actually be taken into cognizance by the president. And the president will in turn probably return it back to the National Assembly and request that probably the right thing is done. But that didn't happen in this case, and so you went through that. And so within the very short time, we have to go through another process. We don't know how much distance this could cover, but it just tells you that it's an unfinished business. But that's also quite a difficult one in the context that We're already in an election year. I think that's the thing about it.
The first election will be less than 10 months away, actually.
Absolutely.
January next year is less than 10 months away.
Exactly. So without certainty in terms of the legal framework that you're actually going to use for that election, it can be very problematic for the Electoral Commission and even for citizens themselves who are actually going to be part of that election, either as candidate or as electorate. It's really, really a difficult thing, to be honest.
When the National Assembly was done with the Electoral Act, it was passed to the president and he signed, there were whoos and cries as to certain things that ought to have been included in the Electoral Act. Last week, we saw the House of Representatives in one sitting passing amendments to the same act. The amendments that were passed were not the ones on which Nigerians were calling for a review. It was something completely different. And it was done in one sitting, first reading, second reading, third reading, all in one session, one legislative session. But did it cover some of the other issues? Because the other issues were not too important to them, to be honest. And I wouldn't know, but because, again, the way politics is played in this country can be quite difficult. I wouldn't be surprised if the action within the National Assembly also, or the House of Reps, has something to do with the executive interest. Because what we have seen consistently with this National Assembly is that nothing is done without the interest of the executive, particularly on strategic legislations like this in an election year. So one of the key major issue was around electronic transmission of results. There was a major demand from civil society that's even resulted into protest. For days, people have mobilized and went to the National Assembly demanding for that particular provision to be adopted. But it didn't happen. And then, when the National Assembly has to reopen that... when they open that gate again.
Have to open that gate again.
Let everything that we left behind.
They didn't even consider this one. They went for something a bit more extraneous.
Are we dealing with a set of lawmakers that are more preoccupied with self-interest here? Because the amendments they were in a hurry in the first period. And then, after the president has signed, we forgot this. Okay, let's quickly bring it back and put it in the box. And I'm looking just how significant.
Party membership,
how significant and how so important is this amendment that was effected by the House of Representatives. The amendment was to Section 77 of the Electoral Act assigned by President Tinubu. Section 77 had to do with membership for political parties.
That's what I was saying.
Now, the new thing they brought in is that is to prevent people from belonging, as it were, to two political parties.
And that's not an issue. In a real sense
how important is that?
It's not important. It's only important in the context of these elections, because it has never been a major issue in previous elections. And I haven't gone through a legal review of any of court or election tribunal proceedings, but I can't remember anyone that actually have to do with membership of two political parties. But in this particular case, what is happening is that we are having one of the biggest wave of defections in our electoral history or in our political history. The mass number of governors that have been decamping to the ruling party in particular. And there are National Assembly members who are doing that. But there were those who weren't too clear. There were some of them who are actually in the ruling party, but they are afraid of taking decisions to leave and join opposition, because as governors decamped, the dynamics of politics and party membership in the states changes. Some gain, some lose. And in most cases, when people are holding on like that, they want to hold on until elections time for them to probably be able to take a decision on under what platform to run, or if they miss if they don't get a seat here, like
if
we
you
have
don't
seen,
get a ticket,
you don't get a ticket here,
a party A,
you
can move to party B.
move to party B.
Was that what this is aimed at?
I think that's
tackling?
what they are that's what is aimed at tackling.
Then if that is what is aimed at tackling,
Yes.
I think the lawmakers are just being clever by half.
Yes.
Because that would mean that they have not averted their minds
Yes.
to some other provisions of the Electoral Act.
Yes.
There's a provision of the Electoral Act as passed by them,
Yes.
which required political parties to send to INEC.
Yes, their membership
before party primaries.
Primary. They send yes.
Digital
Yes.
copy
Yes.
of their membership register.
Yes.
So if that membership register is already with INEC,
Yes.
before party primaries,
Yes.
if you contest party primaries or party A and you lose, it simply means you can't go to party B because party B's membership register in digital format
Yes.
has already been submitted to INEC before that primary.
Yes. So you see,
So this will look like
and this particular provision is not new. Even in the amended legislation, we actually have that provisions of parties submitting their membership register to INEC.
Yeah.
And if you are named, your membership is not reflected in that register.
Yes.
You can. So what actually happens in this country?
Will it be a lesson also from the 2023 elections?
Yes.
I recall that in the 2023 elections, His Excellency Peter Obi was not a member of the Labour Party.
Yes.
Until 3 months before that party primary.
Yes. Yes.
And the law that time was that you should have been a member of a political party more than 3 months before that party primaries.
Yes.
It was, at the time, it was so clear that he would not get the ticket of the PDP that he then moved to Labour Party, which was less than 3 months.
Yes.
So his membership of Labour Party was less than 3 months.
3 months.
Was this kind of arrangement aimed at preventing...
That's the kind of thing was aimed at. And wasn't Peter Obi alone. There were many other candidates. The parties will give them exceptions. And I think
Labour Party gave him an exception.
The party gives them exceptions and say, oh yes, the provision says this, but it's the decision lies with the political party, and therefore they have decided to give them exceptions. And this is what
to deny the political parties.
This is what to deny the political parties
such opportunity of saying we did it.
Yes, but in this particular case, it is designed to protect the ruling party.
Yeah.
That's the design, because it is within the ruling party that the dynamics of party membership, the politics is brewing. And as people defect, the possibility
they defect with bags of demands.
They defect with bags of demands. And then within the party, some people will gain, some will lose. And there are people who are not happy with that gain of defection that is happening. And they are looking forward and look, if I don't get what I want here,
I will go to the next.
I will go to the next. And they want to stop them from going to the next.
As we saw in the nearby Nasarawa State.
Exactly.
All the National Assembly members who won elections on the platform of relatively or no political parties in that particular area at that time. They all left the APC because a certain godfather denied them
the ticket
and won the election.
And then some of them actually moved back to APC.
So now this is the APC trying to eat his cake in advance and still keep it.
And have it. That's basically what is happening. And that's why they have to speedily do it. Ordinarily, if the executive were patient enough to actually say that we can review this law, we have a bill before us, let's do a review, and then probably it would have returned back to the National Assembly, and maybe in addition to that process, it wouldn't have been as controversial as what we are seeing now. Now the bill has been assented by the president. It has become an act, and then within 2 weeks, you realize that somebody said this can be a problem, and then you say bring it back, and then they brought it back, and then within a day, you walked over it. And
it was all done in a day. Even though the amendments were, very negligible. Just the provision that I've read now, 77, which is that 77, they now created new subsections 8 to 10.
Yes.
Subsection 8 says a person shall not be registered 9, where it is established that a person is registered as a member of more than one political party at the same time, such dual membership shall be void.
Yes.
And the person shall cease to be recognized as a valid member of any political party pending regularization in accordance with the provisions of this Act and the constitution of the political party concerned. And then lastly, that's the new subsection 10. A person who knowingly registers or maintains membership in more than one political party at the same time commits an offense, is liable on conviction to a fine of 10 million naira or imprisonment for a term of 2 years, or both.
Both, yeah.
Now, what I'm saying, again, let me go back to, couldn't the original position that is in the Act, as signed by the President, which is the provision of the law requiring political parties to submit before primaries the digital format of their membership register. Shouldn't that provision suffice? Shouldn't it have taken care of the...
Because you have a membership. And you have your membership database. And INET require that you submit. And once you submit it, only those whose name reflect on that database would have been accepted. Yes, there's a possibility that people can have their names reflected in more than one party.
Even before the party primaries?
Even before the party primaries.
Okay, so that's a possibility.
That's a possibility.
In case there's such possibility,
instead there's such possibility.
New provision will kick in.
And it's politicians that does that. And it's because they are the politicians. They knew some of their members actually have their legs in more than one party. They are all trying to survive. They know and they discuss this amongst themselves. So if you have, the law is not clear, in my understanding, that, okay, should your name be reflected in two different political parties, what happened? I think they found
that's what led them into
there's a lacuna. There's a lacuna
to close that gap.
To close that gap.
I see.
That's what led to it. But ordinarily, that wouldn't have been a major, shouldn't have been a major issue. Because it hasn't been a major issue to give their ticket to a candidate irrespective of how long he or she have been in the party.
There are even political parties that wait for the big political parties
to finish their primaries,
knowing full well that, there will be katakata,
which for me,
and then they hope to reap from such.
And which for me, ordinarily, is not a problem. Because freedom of associations also has to be respected. It's a very important provision of our human right in the chapter 4 of our constitution. And so you cannot infringe on my right to associate. So if I don't find a space in this party, I think nothing should stop me from moving to another party.
Is this an attempt to try to into membership for political parties?
I'm all for it. Yes,
your membership for political parties shouldn't be because you want to run for elections. Use it as a platform.
To run for elections. Yes, that's one of it. But I wish it is as altruistic as that. I wish it is not part of a political machinations of ensuring that certain people or people are the ruling party are moving out to another party with their followership. I wish it's an altruistic one, because that's for me a major issue.
If it is, that is...
if it's altruistic, that's fine. Even though I always feel like one of the major gaps in our politics is the values that our politicians espouse. Ordinarily, even as a politician, you should recognize that it shouldn't be. You can't, look, if you lose an election here, you should always accept that when you say it's a contest, you win or you lose. That's basically what it is. So if you don't win, probably you wait for another time.
That's true.
But because people don't have actually this very important values.
The investments are too high. The interests are too high.
So, and therefore, it is almost like a must-win. It's a do-or-die. It's a do-or-die affair.
Now, as it is, it's just an amendment hanging in the air. Because, the Senate has gone on recess till... Salah break the wait on. Till when they left last week, they said they will be resuming on the 30th of March. But it's all doubtful now if 30th of March will also be a reality, because that break is for Salah. As Salah is ending, was the Christian Easter comes in. They probably want to stay and observe Easter break as well.
Yeah.
So, give or take, we may not have the Senate concurring to this, or probably sometime around middle of April. If that happens, does that impact on the validity of the Electoral Act to govern an election that has already been unfolded?
Yeah, probably before I come into this, I actually think that this amendment is safe. Why would you accept people to decamp after they have been elected under a banner of a party to another party, and you don't have any problem with that? And then you don't.
Should that have been the problem of the Electoral Act or the Constitution?
It is the Constitution, of course, but it's the same body that is responsible for both. That's the truth about it. It's the same National Assembly that will initiate both. The second, you said you cannot defect after you've lost primary election, but you can defect after you won the general election. Because that, for me, is one thing that needs to be cleared. Second, on your question, my sense is, if the executive have an interest in this particular amendment, I believe the Senate would find a way of convening, even if it's just for one day, just like the House of Reps did.
They can always convene in one day.
They can always convene in one day and just give their concurrence, and then the two committees harmonize and send it to the president for assent. I believe that can be done. But it's going to be a huge problem for INEC and for our electoral process. Because you cannot have an electoral law 6 months before.
That is not certain.
That is not
6 months before elections.
Before elections. It's going to be a problem. Yes, I know some of the conversation out there is that, oh, this particular provision have nothing to do, but it's a very important provision related to elections because it's about candidates.
All right. There are so many other controversies. One that is, you raised one much earlier, which have been calling for a review.
Yes.
That's the issue of real-time transmission of election results from the polling unit. Is it not sufficient?
Yeah.
That the polling the electoral officer shall upload and transmit the results to the INEC portal. That is after that Form EC8 has been signed by all the political party agents. The polling use the word written shall transmit the results to the INEC portal. And thereafter give copies to the polling agents. And for the purposes of collation, where the electoral officer is not able to transmit, he shall subsequently transmit, but he shall transmit it from there. But for the purposes of collation, the Form EC8 shall be the primary material to be used. It hasn't changed anything. Because even if you upload real time and it's transmitted to INEC portal, the Form EC8 is what will still be relied on at the next collation stage for the purposes of collation. So whether it's real time or not real time does not change the format of collation of results.
You know, we all have different ways of seeing elections. And I have tremendous respect for my colleagues who actually think that the electronic transmission and that direct processes is what is required to do it. And I know majority of us feel that way, and I respect that. But my conversation on this has always been that we don't need to be very mechanical in our approach to elections. And that the IRF is just a folder. The IRF has no system for collation.
It doesn't have.
It does not have
you send the material to it.
It's a folder.
It's not capable of moving
like
itself
having a
to
photo
anywhere.
album. You take a photo, you have a folder, you drop it there.
Or you use your phone to snap pictures. The particular month, the pictures you take in that month. That month it comes up again.
So there is no system of collation within the IRF. What IRF helps us
is
do...
Is it manned by somebody who is there? Okay, this result has come in. He clicks on it, he puts it in a place where he tabulates. Is there such provision at the back end?
There's no such provision at the back end. what it only helps us is it helps us to strengthen the accountability of the process. That parties can actually have people at the back end that sits down and are watching and collating on their own manually, so that they can be able to compare it with forms ECA that probably may be collated.
Just as IDEC is doing its own?
Yes, just like they are also doing their own.
Okay.
So that nobody sits there and change and alter them. And because sometimes part of the challenge is at the point of transmission, whether from different collation level to the RF helps us in managing that. But when we now demand that it should become the sole process, it can be very challenging. I know that this country had made tremendous progress technology-wise. I also know that our internet access has also increased significantly. But the database from NCC, if we check, is still around 55%.
So it's a long way.
So it's still a long way in terms of internet penetration. And then if you also check from that same database, the kind of services, we are still drawing over 80% of these access is not broadband in that sense. So it can be epileptic, it can be slow, it can be challenges. If you make it the sole process, for me, as important as having that transparency is, I respect that. But making it a sole process can be very problematic. It can lead us to something that we probably don't envisage. So having the two, for me, it's not a bad idea. I know a lot of my colleagues will disagree with me, but...
No, but it's only people who are not being realistic that will probably disagree with this. Somebody tries to call you, the call is not coming into you. And then you get to a particular place, you receive SMS, this call from so number. Why there was no missed call to you?
Absolutely. So I just think that we just need, because election, we don't toil with, we don't get too emotional with the legislative process. We just need to understand, a very good understanding of our context. That's just the first risk. But there's other risks around it. Look, around the world, there are still very few countries that are doing electronic transmission. Because cybersecurity...
It's also a present danger.
It presents a huge danger. Up to this moment, the glitches that we claim to have experienced during the last elections, we are not clear what actually caused it. We have not done a proper audit to understand whether there is an excellent interference of that process.
All right. I have another angle to all of this, but maybe we'll keep that on the table now. We'll need to go on a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'll bring that on board for us to also examine it.
Wherever life takes you, home is who you share iftar with. Ramadan Mubarak from Terra.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
The program is Jigsaw. Today we're looking at the unfinished business of... last week, the House of Representatives effected some amendments to Section 77 of the Electoral Act, making it an offense for a member of a political party to belong to two political parties at the same time. The punishment for that is 2 years imprisonment,
or 10 million.
or a fine of 10 million naira, or if you meet a very hardliner judge, he could impose both punishments on you. That is, you pay 10 million naira and you still go to jail for 2 years. That's if you are so unlucky. Yeah. But we're trying to wonder what that provision is meant to cure. But we have moved to another issue, and that is the issue of the e-transmission of results and all of that. And with the benefit of hindsight on what it happened in the tribunals, the Electoral Act requires political parties to have agents in all polling units.
Yes.
The Electoral Act requires political parties to have agents at the coalition levels, which is from the ward to the local government, and then to the national, to the states. If it's a governorship election, if it's a national election, up to the senatorial headquarters.
Yes.
If it's a House of Reps seat, up to the House of Reps headquarters.
The federal constituency.
And if it's a presidential election, up to the National Coalition Center. You are supposed to have polling agents, accredit those agents. In the 2023 elections, we saw a situation whereby it came to light that political parties, apart from the APC
100%.
None of them. To have polling agents. So they didn't have materials to depend on, which was why all this subpoena on INEC to produce results and all of that. Something you could easily have collated on your own from your party agents. Of the political parties this time around on e-transmission is a way out for the political parties trying to be lazy. So you don't need to have agents in all the police units, since the results are going to be transmitted real time, according to their demand. All you have to do is just set up a situation room of your own, keyed into the INEC IRF, and as results are coming in from the polling units, you are pulling them out, and you are competing on your own, without necessarily having police agents as required by the Electoral Act.
Benga, to be very honest, this our political system that we're practicing, one of the biggest missing link is our political parties. The political parties are not performing their responsibilities. And part of the crisis we even experience in our elections is also because of the failures of our political parties. These are parties, whether ruling parties or opposition, their own elections, to have their congresses. You need to, if you follow, it's war. You need to follow the APC congresses, what they had recently, and what has been happening, and the contentions around what happened there. I actually want to believe that it is part of the trigger for this law. For this amendment we are trying to make. That's what the trigger is coming from.
So if you are disgruntled, you are disgruntled forever.
Yes, you are disgruntled. You have nowhere to go. Yes.
Be a disgruntled member of the party, you remain within the party.
Yes, it is like this Hausa saying that they hit you and they stop you from crying. So you are being hit, but you can't cry. I think this is why it is. So our parties have been so irresponsible. That elections, and at the IAGA, we took records of all the political parties. Each time we go to observe from the polling unit, we assess which party actually has polling agent. And across, except even the ruling party had about 98%. Many others, the three major parties were PDP and Labour Party. I've forgotten the details, but I don't think that both parties, both the PDP and the Labour Party, had 80%. Labour Party was less than about 73% or so, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of polling agent.
They didn't have. They didn't have. That's why they couldn't.
The second way is
it forces them to then resort to what the tribunal will then label dumping. You just subpoena INEC to give you the results.
Exactly.
INEC will give them to you.
Exactly.
But you need to lead evidence to present them before the tribunal.
Absolutely. And the second part is the quality of the agent himself.
They
will get the best of people at the National Coalition Centers. But when you go down to the polling unit, the quality of the agents as highly questionable, and the possibility of compromising is very, very high.
Very high, yeah.
And so you can see it's very easy. We have seen polling agents being bought over by opposition side.
Yeah.
And this happened. So when you are not able to discipline, because parties are supposed to be membership driven, politically educated, because that's a huge difference between the early generation, whether First Republic or to some extent Second Republic, the character of the political parties. You are clear about your membership, you educate your membership, you prepare them for everything. But here you don't do. It's just this one, what we have these days are just election machines. You just want to contest elections. You need something to just drive you to that process, and you ride on the political parties. So parties now want laws to be provided to cover their own inadequacies. Yeah. And that, for me, is not even good for the system.
That then leads us to the requirements for party members, the stringent requirement for you to belong to a political party.
Yes.
Any organization you want to belong to, that you need to submit your need.
Yes.
That's your national identification number.
Yes.
I think BVN is also required. Your biometric BVN is what now?
Biometric number.
Okay, your BVN.
Your BVN,
any organization you belong to, your need is required, your BVN is required, bank verification number is required, that's required. We have to take membership of that association very seriously.
Yeah.
So perhaps these new requirements now may address some of these inadequacies that we've seen in the political parties, being able to transit for being just a vehicle, special purpose vehicles for election purposes, but one that you have to be committed to. Now we expect that political parties should be able to, in every ward, it should be possible for a political party to have serious-minded members who will be willing to be the ears and the eyes of the political party on election day as party agents.
Look, I wish they can do this, to be very honest. And sometimes part of the challenge of this country is not the maybe lack of laws or provisions of law, is the level of lawlessness in the country. That despite elaborate provisions across many things in this country, people can decide to do things the way they like. See, previously, even the parties insist that every member they must take your passport photo. Your ID card, your membership ID must reflect your face. But we have seen cases, apart from those who are contesting elections, who are ensuring that every damn provision requirement are met. Other members be issued a card without your passport photographs. That was before even this particular requirement.
Okay, before this requirement in the new electoral act.
Before this new requirement. But I bet you, if we are dealing with these political parties, whether ruling or opposition, the characters in this party and how they take and treat the parties, it may happen with the high-profile members who will be running elections, who are afraid that some of this, if you don't follow those procedures, it could count against you in election tribunal if anything happens. But the real grassroots people, you may not get these details. First, check how many % of Nigerians have national ID. I think on the last count, and I may be wrong if anyone who is very conversant is following this, I don't think we are up to 60% of the adult population that have national ID cards. Second, the banking population of this country
is also very
low.
Almost insignificant.
It's very insignificant, about 20% or so, if I'm not mistaken. So now, if you now put these as criteria, and you have people, the real people in our rural areas, many of them, look, how many local government have banks? I used to have the database of that. The local government that you go to, there are close to 37% of local governments in this country that you don't have a single bank. No bank, even at the local government headquarters. So where are you going to get the BVN? So these are things that sometimes we make these laws without actually thinking
them through.
We're not thinking them through.
Whether the technological backbone is there.
Is there. BVN is not something that you just walk out there and get. You have to go to the bank to get that.
Yeah.
And even those who have, where you have cash points, which many of them with ATMs and all those, they're not even longer there. But yes, you may have cash point. And cash point, they don't do those things. So maybe
1 year after this requirement, do a review of how it has helped.
Yes, we can do that.
Probably how far it has also lifted up some of our agencies, you know, like the card management.
Yes. As a state in this country, there are less than 20% of births are registered. That's the problem. But you see, people still can go to court to do an affidavit and declare their age. So that's understandable. You could go to a magistrate court. You can, if you don't have a magistrate in your community, you could probably go to an area. That's understandable. National ID, also quite understandable. We can encourage more. But with banks, they are businesses. You don't have money to deposit in a bank. You have no business
there because you have to open an account. You have to open an account. Operate an account for you to have a BVN. So it's not something, it's not that it's a requirement and then you just see
banks now going around
and you just branch there that I want a BVN.
I want a BVN. It doesn't happen.
Banks, for the purposes of opening an account and having BVN,
for their members,
for them to belong to a political party, as against putting their bodies in a calabash or putting it under the batter. So, okay, let me move to another issue, and I'd like to also find out whether you understand the hues and cries around this issue. This has to do with the requirement in the new law that political parties can only choose their candidates through one of two options. It is either through direct primaries or through consensus. It used to be three options. You have direct, indirect, and consensus. Now, the indirect primaries has been removed. We now have direct and indirect. The political parties, the opposition political parties, all of them, almost all of them. Do you understand what they are complaining about? Really?
Well, one of the complaints that comes from opposition political parties is they don't have the resources that the ruling parties have to conduct direct processes. And congresses are very expensive. And for them, they have not only been they are being disenfranchised by impoverishing the party. It's part of the demands, that opposition political parties make by requesting that INEC go back to the old ways of providing grants to political parties. You know, we used to provide grants to parties. And these grants depends on the size of the party. And the size is measured by the number of people you may elect
in the legislative assemblies, including up to the local government.
Yeah, it was when Jigsaw was appointed as INEC chair that stopped. And I knew that the opposition parties have been consistently putting pressure on INEC, even all through Jigsaw.
That was the reason why that stopped. Because we then had political parties,
abused.
Exactly.
It was badly
briefcase political parties.
People just wake up and then they go and they get parties.
Hussein Agbega political parties.
And that's fine.
Hussein Agbega Democracy Action Party.
and then they conspire with people in the INEC and they share the money. And that was clear. They got a proper review of that, and we found out that this process was badly abused, and they stopped it. And so these have been part of the complaint, and they've been making. And the idea is that they don't have the resources and the internal capacity because of their size to go through that. And that how you present your candidate should be shaped by your own party's constitutions and systems that you have put in place. And the Electoral Act should not have any business in defining what to do. If you remember, the just amended Electoral Act, that was, the last one was Electoral Act 2022 or so, I can't remember that, during Buhari. That was also one of the major contentions around it, and at a point, they removed consensus. Then Buhari returned it back to the National Assembly. At that time, because also the ruling party was interested on the consensus side of it, and then that was pushed on. But I think the opposition party's concern has been that they don't have the resources to go through direct processes.
If a party is anchored on the membership, on its membership, should we be talking about the issue of...
That the political parties...
Because if my party, for instance, is holding a congress in the state capital, spent by nobody to go, I mean, in any case...
Which is what even the ruling parties also do.
Should we gather in a particular place to have the congress? Can't you do the election...
Centralized manner.
Yes.
And aggregate results.
Like the APC did it.
Yes.
Buhari scored 40-something million.
Yes.
40-something million votes in the Congress.
Congress, yes.
That made him candidate.
Yes. So you can do that. There are mechanisms to do that. But because we have turned these things to jamboree, and our political parties, particularly the oppositions, are not thinking. People are not thinking. People are quite lazy. I'm very sorry to say this. Because we are where we are today because our political parties have failed us and have continued to fail. Otherwise, where would a party that had at one point 31 governors collapse to a level that it few city governors will start defecting? This party was a ruling party for almost 16 years.
Congratulations to Governor Sheyibakide is the chairman of the PDP Governor Forum.
Yes. That's only one governor, and he's the only one governor. So what the hell is happening? You have a party that presented a presidential candidate, came third, at the point that nobody even gave them any chance. They got people elected into the National Assembly. That's the Labour Party. And that party is almost dead.
Okay. Now,
it's a problem.
Is there anything illegal or outrightly unlawful in what the National Assembly has done with this provision in the Electoral Act?
Which of them?
The streamlining mode of party primaries to only 2. Is there anything infringing on the right of political parties?
From where I see.
Because that's also the argument that the court should declare it null and void because it's an infringement on the rights of political parties.
Yes, that's what they claim. And it's,
would that be
I don't think there's a valid argument.
Let me show you why it would not be a valid argument. I was going through the Constitution yesterday. Section 228 of the Constitution. Powers of the National Assembly with respect to political parties. The National Assembly, and this was an amendment done to the Constitution. Since 20 was when this was introduced into the Constitution. This is what it has provides for. The National Assembly may, by law, provide guidelines and rules. Guidelines and rules. And the Electoral Act is a rule. Guidelines and rules to ensure internal democracy within of party primaries. Party congresses and party conventions, and it goes on.
And I remember this particular provision was an amendment to the original 1999 Constitution.
Exactly.
And that amendment was informed by our demand that the party internal democracy is crumbling, and that the bulk of the cases we are having in court actually has to do with party internal democracy. And so this particular provision was provided in the Constitution to manage that. So by virtue of this provision in the Constitution, I don't think that the National Assembly is doing anything ultra-vires.
Okay.
to be very honest. It's not doing anything controversial.
Okay.
The parties need to organize themselves and actually be able to, if it is Congress that they're afraid of, people should do it, because these processes are every time, they are abused in every elections. INEC struggles. You have this candidate today, you go...
you have list called the provisional list,
yes,
or the order of a course. This person is candidate.
And then just this candidate missing, or the party missing in the ballot paper, is enough to disqualify an election. So what is the problem?
All right, Dr.
Or
Abdul.
invalidate an election, yes.
We just have to stop here. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It has been Dr. Oseni Abdul, a public intellectual with decades of experience in shaping policies, building institutions, particularly those that support democracy, though it's varied into those that also promote good governance and social welfare now. Thank you once again. I appreciate your time. Thank you too for investing your time with us. We really appreciate it. On behalf of all of us, my name is Benga. I really ask you to enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you around.